Okay, Emily Janoch is the Senior Technical Advisor for Knowledge Management and Research, and she also has her stick.
Sorry, we're going to do the technical dance again.
Yes. So, but really, CARE is one of the organizations that 35 years ago, when I was organizing my first symposium, Philip Johnson, the head of CARE, was my keynote speaker. And when we spoke to USAID about the possibility of transforming USAID on the subject of community-led development, they said, well, be sure to start with CARE. So I ran over to CARE's office, and I'm really delighted to introduce Emily, who will now demonstrate her technical prowess.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much to my fellow speakers who really teed up a great conversation and said a lot of things that I'm going to kind of reinforce and repeat. So as you mentioned, CARE is an organization that's been around for a long time. We work in 87 countries in the world. And we really believe in the slogan we use is defending dignity and fighting poverty, the same messages that my colleagues have had. This is about making sure that people in the communities, the poorest and the most vulnerable, get what they need. So this is Anastasia. I met her about 6 weeks ago in northern Mozambique in a village called Makonta, and she has just one of those fabulous community-led development stories that I wanted to share with the room. She lives in this tiny little village called Makonta. She's a woman in her 20s. She's single, unmarried, so no husband, but 2 kids. And she doesn't really have any access to land, although farming is her major way of earning her living. In any universe, Anastasia is not a woman who has a lot of power. She is not somebody who really is what you think of when you think about who is driving development. But about a year ago, she heard on the radio that CARE was going to be doing some community-led development programming, what we call farmers' field schools, in her area. And she said, we need one of those here, and we need it now. Makonta was not on our list. We didn't have the funding for it. We were not planning to operate in that community. Just wasn't one of the places that we had targeted. And she said, that's not acceptable to me. So she came and she found our local partner, Aina, who does a lot of the actual agricultural extension work. And she said, we need one here. I will make sure that I organize the field association. I will make sure that the farmers show up. I will make sure we are the best field school you've ever had. We need one here.
Great.
And so we have one there, and they are one of the best schools we have. And in fact, that whole program is one of our best agricultural extension programs. But we had to go find some extra money. We had to negotiate with the local partner to make sure we could get some staff members out to that village. We had to change the way we were thinking about our program in order to do what she told us to do. She was right. We needed to be there. But it wasn't what we had already seen. So that's really an example of how we think about the way development needs to go. Somebody like Anastasia, who has no power, needs to be able to come and talk to us and talk to our donors to say, this is what needs to change. So there are a couple of approaches that we use to do this. The first one, again, my colleagues have said, it's really about investing in relationship with communities. There are places where CARE has been around for 60 years. We're there for the long term. We are not here for a 3-year project and then we will leave and you'll never see us again. That means that communities know who we are, and they know how to find us, and they know how to tell us when we're doing it wrong. And they trust us enough to do that. They know that if they say, this isn't working right, that doesn't mean we're just going to drop them and walk away. So that's a really important part of what we do. It's not really that project-focused, this is the only way to do something. It's thinking about the longer term and what are the problems in the places where we work. The second one is thinking about women's empowerment. We know women are some of the poorest and most vulnerable people, and they have an extraordinary number of barriers to accessing power at all levels. So when we think about women's empowerment, we tend to think in 3 domains. Agency, which is very much skills and capacity. That's around literacy, that's around what are the farming techniques you use, what's the nutrition information you need to be able to feed your children better. But we know that having information and having skills is not enough for a woman. So if she is the best farmer in the world, and legally she cannot access land, that will not help her. So structure is the next thing we think about. Structure is really around that legal framework. What is the government doing to support her? Can she inherit resources? Can she get an equal wage in the market? Can she access land? And then the third piece is around relationships. So if we build the best program in the world and we say, we want the community to tell us how to do this and we're gonna have community meetings and you should come talk to us, and a woman's mother-in-law says, that's fine, but you leaving the house to go to that meeting makes you a bad wife because you haven't cooked dinner for my son, that does not serve the women in the community. So we need to also think about those household dynamics and those community relationships that support women's ability to access power. And honestly, a lot of the work we do around this involves engaging men. And one of the responses that is most interesting to me is that men say, I had no idea that that's what her day looked like. Really? I can help out with that. Like, I can take over collecting water so that she can go to a meeting. I had no idea that that's what she was doing every day. It's just, that's her problem. So it's not just focusing on women, it's thinking about the broader picture. Another one that we look at is the governance framework. And I really want to stress that governance does not equal governments in this situation. So when we talk about governance, we talk about informed and responsible citizens who are able to access power, and responsible and accountable power holders who will deal with that, and opening up spaces for negotiation between those two groups of people. So the national government and the local government hold power, but so does CARE. We know that when we walk into a community with the kind of funding and the kind of structure we have a power that those people do not. And that we have to open up spaces for negotiation, not just between the government and the community, and not just between a company and the community, but between ourselves and the community. So this is one of my favorite examples. It's Corée La Vie. It's a program we run in Haiti. It's USAID funded, and USAID was great. They allowed us to be a lot more flexible with this kind of programming than we normally would. And one of the pieces we've done is open up an accountability system. So we've done some vulnerability targeting, working with the government. Previously, 50% of all social support in Haiti went to people who were not poor and did not need it. So this has been a big change now to say we're going to target the people who are actually poor. But if you think we did it wrong, come talk to us. Tell us if there's somebody who should be on that list who isn't, or if there's somebody who is on that list who shouldn't be. And as you can see in this picture, the little old ladies of Haiti have taken us up on the offer. They are not shy about coming to say, now I know who to talk to, here's what needs to be different. And we are making changes because of that. So often in these kinds of conversations, people talk about, we need to give the community a voice. I would suggest that that's not the right framing. The community already has a voice. Anastasia knows exactly what she wants, and she's right. What we need to do is build the ears to hear them with. What are the tools that we use to be able to listen to what communities are telling us? And how do we make sure that that gets into our decision-making, into decision-making here at the bank or with other major donors, into government decision-making? So I'm going to talk about a couple of the ears that we use. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just a few of the ones that we've got going on. First one's the community scorecard. And this is really about community members and service providers. So that might be the mayor's office, it might be a healthcare center, it might be an agricultural program extension, it might be us. We do capacity building. We see capacity building as a service we provide to the community. So it's a way for the community and the service providers to agree on a set of things that they think should be changing, services they think should be out there, and then for each of them to grade themselves and the other side to say, how's it working? So you may find that a health center says, we do great services, but the community's not really showing up. And the community may say, yeah, the actual care is fine, but people are really rude to me when I walk through the door. So I'm not showing up because I'm feeling like it's not worth my time to get pushed around and have to wait in line for 4 hours. And it opens up those spaces for conversation around an agreed upon set of principles. So instead of people just attacking each other, you can say, how do we improve the work that we're doing? The second one we use is called the Participatory Performance Tracker. And this one is interesting because it's sort of halfway between monitoring and evaluation and community accountability. So while the community scorecard is kind of at that service provider level, this is at the community group level. So water associations, farmers associations, all the community groups that we work with. And it's the same sort of process. Write down a set of here are the changes we thought would happen, and then say, did it work or didn't it? And if it didn't work, why not? Sometimes communities use this to hold each other accountable, to say, well, it didn't work because the mayor said he would give us this land and he didn't. And sometimes they use it to hold us accountable. It didn't work because you said you would bring improved seeds, but you brought them too late for the rainy season, so we didn't do it this year. Aggregating that across communities and across whole projects allows us to see what do we need to be doing differently. Do we need to be providing different kinds of support? Are we managing this well or we aren't? Do we have enough staff to actually do the kind of project that we want to do? Farmers Field and Business Schools, I'm running a little short on time, so I will sort of glide over this one. It's a pretty common approach to think about how do you put the farmer at the center of learning so that they can do the piece of work that they need instead of having an extension agent come out and say, here's the crop, we know it works better, look, see it grows very well in my field, please go do that. And then to walk back home and say, well, they just don't want to do it because they're not right. This is really about the community saying, here are our needs and our goals, using the tools and the information you have, what makes the most sense for us. And then the last one I want to talk about is moving past that 15-kilometer radius. That's a really important radius, and if you don't have access in those spaces, you don't have access anywhere. But we know that getting community voices past those 15 kilometers is incredibly important being able to get a community voice into a national or a regional or a global conversation is critically important to changing the game. So one of the programs we're running in South Sudan actually took community photos. So we had a professional photographer go out and take these beautiful photographs. And then we took the photos back to the women in those communities and said, you tell us what you want the world to know. You tell us, we're supposed to be using these photos to message about what's going on in South Sudan. So you tell us, what should we say to the world? What they said to us was, no to gender-based violence, no to war, yes to education. That's what the women in South Sudan have as an advocacy message. And we tell that message because they're the ones who know best. So that's just a quick sampling. I'm happy to talk more about any or all of these things. Feel free to ask me some questions. You can check on our website, care.org. I have some postcards that are links to each of the tools I've talked about today, and you're more than welcome to email me, and I'd be happy to follow up.
Emily, thank you.